Hey everybody, it's Carl Gild here, and we're going to interview Greg Andrade, who is the owner of Unbundled Property Management. He's a great guy. I've been working with him, and I suggest if you're looking for property management services that you give him a call. Hey everyone, it's Carl Gild here, and today I am with Greg Andrade, who is the owner of Unbundled Property Management. Hey Greg, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Carl. It's a pleasure.
Cool. So we met, a couple months ago, I think, at a property that one of my buyers just purchased, and I was really impressed about how you do things, and really want to put this out to my agents as well as anybody else who wants to watch it on YouTube and everything, just to talk about property management, talk about you, how you do things, and see what you have to say. So, a couple of one question right off the top. So you own the company. How long have you been doing this? Like, how'd you get into it? That type of thing.
Yeah. So the company's only been around a few years, but I've been in real estate for 5 years, which isn't, a ton compared to it. My associates have been in it a lot longer than people I work with. My background a little bit is I started as a buy and hold investor. Throughout that time, my real estate investing strategy changed a little bit. I was an agent for a little bit, decided I wanted to stay on the investing side. So I ended up partnering with a person, and we did a few dozen flips and then another few dozen rehabs on top of that. So we have really strong renovation and construction knowledge, which obviously translates into the property management side of it really well. And we also have a very systems heavy company that we rely on these efficiencies. So we are allowed to run this low overhead business, which allows us to therefore pass our discounts on to our clients.
Gotcha. And when you talk about systems and stuff, what exactly is that? Like, what are? Can you give me a couple examples of like systems, or if it's not giving away the trade secrets of what?
Yeah. Not at all. So the first time I met you, Carl, was at a property, and we walked through the building and we talked to the residents. We saw an empty unit, and during that time, I take photos of all the serial numbers for the appliances. I take the measurements for the appliances. I make sure I have thorough pictures to understand the locations of the vulnerable areas, such as the plumbing portions, right under the sinks, behind the bathtubs. Basically, we set this up so that when there's a problem, we can respond efficiently ourselves. We don't have to drive out there every time. We don't have to try to coordinate with the resident every single time. We might have the information on hand so that we can send the proper professional out there to do the job. So basically, it's all efficiencies, right? We're looking to make it more efficient for not only ourselves, which makes our job easier, but the resident who is front line and having to deal with the people, the foot traffic, right? The coordinating the repairs that are needed. So that's just one example of the systems. Apart from that, we have a ton of in-house procedures that we work with our team on. So everything is uniform. We want to make sure that we're very consistent in our responses. We're very responsive in the first place, right? There's values built into the efficiencies that we have that allow us to kind of present the same product across the board.
And what would you say is Unbundled's like best type of property? Are you doing everything from like single families, apartment buildings? Like, what is kind of the scope of what you guys handle?
Absolutely. So right now we do service from single families all the way up into mid-sized apartment buildings, but I'd say our bread and butter isn't necessarily the asset as much. We do focus on residential, but it's more of the quality. So it's a good location. It's a property that's, we're not coming to a property that we have to completely rebuild. We're looking for not necessarily a partnership, but we want to collaborate with an owner that cares, right? An owner that wants to provide a quality product to a quality resident. That's what we want. We want something that we can be proud to put our sign outside of and to hang our hat on, right? Because it's very important to us to have these relationships and to create this experience for both our clients and our residents. So to have something that we're not proud of just kind of goes against what we believe in.
So have you gone to properties and you're like, nah, I'm good? Like,
Yeah, honestly, Carl, I can tell you, we do turn down properties in certain locations. We do turn down certain types of properties, and I'll tell you, not every owner is our client as well too,
Right.
right? Because like I said, it needs to align in terms of what we provide on a consistent basis. We want them to align with it as well. So if there's going to be friction there, we try to identify that as quickly as possible. But the good news is most owners align with us pretty well, and it works out. It's just, you
Yeah.
know, not everything's a one size fits all.
That's for sure, right? And it's not only is the property going to be a pain in the ass, but is the owner going to be a pain in the ass? Like there's a lot involved. It's not just so cut and dry. And
Yeah,
obviously being a small business and the owner of the company, you have a little bit more control over that as to
right.
being pickier and choosier about what properties you take on and stuff. That's really good. Now, in terms of like what you guys do, is it from start to finish? Like so obviously as real estate agents, we can get tenants and everything like that, run credit checks and everything. But say it was somebody else who had nothing, just a common everyday Joe who's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to move to California. I'm going to rent my house. I'm out of here. Let me call Greg. What will you handle? Everything, some things, other not things, what?
Absolutely. So long story short, we will get them the answers to everything we need, right? We actually have someone who's moving to Canada and became an accidental landlord, so that's funny. It's a realistic situation, right?
Yeah,
But
definitely.
although we don't handle everything, right? Our company's name is Unbundled. A little bit of background behind that is we took the typical property management structure and we unbundled it, right? We pulled it apart and we put it back together in terms of what we found valuable as investors and what we think other investors will find valuable as well. So, in terms of leasing, we work with agents like yourself to lease the property. We don't actually do that ourselves. We find that when someone is dedicated and we know the person or have vetted the person, they do a much better job. We want to focus on what we're good at, which is being property managers, right? Um, Another thing is we don't, I'll tell you a little about why. So I might be jumping the gun, but we offer a 6% what we call unbundled package. And the
Gotcha.
reason why we can offer such a discounted package versus a typical 10, 12% is because we take everything that typical property managers do and we divide it into two sections, right? One we like to call the heavy lifting, right? The heavy lifting is answering resident calls, maintenance items, emergency calls, writing leases, market rental analysis, basically all the hard stuff, right? Your resident's never going to call you. It's going to be completely passive. But on the right side of what, the division that we created is the easier items. We call it technology. So it's bill pay, it's rent collection, and it's bookkeeping. So bookkeeping we've made optional for a very small fee of $5 per unit a month. But if an owner likes to be involved and likes to be hands on a little bit, that's a good way for him to stay involved, right? So they don't. It's optional. It's not forced. We're not forcing you to do that. Bill pay, just like your cable bill, just like your alarm system at home, you probably don't check your bill every single month, right? Or if you do, you're looking at the email confirmation of it. You're not going to pay it. For us to go on and pay your bills and charge you for it just seems like an extra step and an unnecessary step, right? Especially in this day and age. The other portion of that is rent collection. So in 2023, you can collect your rent online. We can help you get set up on a system that collects, sends it directly to your bank account every single month. You can collect it whether you're in Canada, California, China, Russia, wherever you are, right? So again, it feels unnecessary for us to take the money, shuffle it around, take our portions and pay you out rather than to just have your money go directly to your bank account where it should be and send you our invoice for us to be paid for what we've done for the month. So by us dividing all the tasks down the middle and creating two different sections, that allows us to provide a 6% fee that is a pretty good deal when you look at the overall picture for property management.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think that's really smart too, because having it kind of be like a la carte like that, because, obviously you found, and probably the reason why you unbundled it is that you found that different landlords or owners want to be participants in certain ways. So how can you provide that and not just be like, nope, I do it all and it's just
Right.
this, or no, I can do, we can take care of this, you can still handle that, and so to kind of have it that way I think is smart. And obvious, and it's 6% is great, in terms of having that level. And then of course the add-ons of, okay, $5 for bookkeeping, these other kind of little things is helpful to landlords in terms of like what they care about or what they don't care about, to handle. So I think that's really smart.
Thank you, thank you. And one other thing I forgot to add is with the construction knowledge that I mentioned earlier in the conversation, we do help landlords bring their rentals up to speed if necessary, right? We'll come in, we can make recommendations, and we can also execute on that if they need help.
Gotcha. So like if there was turnover, so say somebody's there for a year, 2 years, you'll go look at the place once it's vacant and figure out what needs to be done, what should be done to kind of keep it up to the standards of of your standards, which I guess would be great for an absentee landlord, right? Who's in Canada, they're not coming down
Right.
to do anything. And then so you'll just report to them and say, hey, it should be painted. We should, kind of spruce up the bathroom. It's going to cost X amount. Is this something you want to do?
Absolutely. And we present it to them kind of like any other investment would, right? If you put this money into it, you can expect this much greater in rent. And when
Yeah.
you divide it up and you across the years, you can actually see your return on investment, right?
Yep. Yep. That's really smart. So it's not just like, here's what you should do. Here's what you should do. And here's the reason why you should do it.
Exactly.
Why it would
Exactly.
make sense. And do you have like annual check-ins at properties or like uh, where you check on tenants? So say that person's up in Canada
Mhm.
and there's a new 1 year lease. Do you check on that tenant? How often are you in touch with the tenant? What does that look like? Because I think most landlords, that's where they like stop. They don't want to deal with the tenant, right? So that's why they
Right.
hire you
Right.
to take care of that. So what does that kind of look like?
Yep. So with all our residents, by the way, we also call them residents. We don't say tenants in our business, just because tenant landlord, it's kind of had a combative nature in the
Definitely,
past, but
I
resident
see
just
that.
kind of it gives them more of a pride. Right? When you call someone a resident instead of a tenant, they walk into the place a little bit different. And they treat it a little bit different. So that also goes right into the answering your question of how often do we see the places. We screen heavily up front. We work with the agents on screening. With us, the income and all the criteria that we get with these residents, they're usually very high quality. So although we'll touch base, virtually, or we'll speak to them in every few months or so, we don't have to see these places because historically we've had very little issue with it being like a maintenance problem, right? Of someone not maintaining the place. There's a lot that you can do up front to reduce that risk. If you don't screen, if you make exceptions, that's when you start to run into a lot of trouble. And we see that with a lot of the landlords that we take properties over from. We ask them, how did you get in this situation? And they start to explain it. And we say, okay, that's where we would have differed, right? So there's always a risk. Of course, you can't guarantee anything, but the more you screen up front, the area you buy and the type of quality product you offer definitely reduces risk on that end.
Gotcha. No, that's really good. Um, so talking about residents, if a resident has an issue, I'm going to call them residents from now on. That's totally different for me. I'm going to try to do that though. I like it. If a resident has an issue, what's the process that they take? So obviously you've taken over the property or you've introduced. They know to call you, like you're there. You've introduced
Mhm.
yourself to them. What do they do? Is it online? They call you, or what's it look like? How responsive
Yeah,
are they?
right. Yeah, right now we send it directly to our email address that's checked by a few of our team members. So one of our big emphasis are responsiveness. We don't want someone to sit. We don't want someone to have an issue and to not be communicated with. Yes, there certainly are higher priority versus lower priorities, but regardless, a resident needs the response, right? They deserve a response. They're paying for a place and they want to be comfortable, right? So, what we do is we have them reach out to us in writing. When they reach out to us in writing, that allows us to document everything. We can ask questions and we can kind of understand the situation. We can request photos, videos, or whatever is necessary. We do say, hey, if there is a big problem and it's an emergency, absolutely call us right away, right? But in order for us to prioritize properly to ensure nothing's missed, we like to put it in writing, and that also gives us something to report back to the owners with if there's ever any miscommunication, right? So putting it in writing is the best way to do it. Again, if there's an emergency, absolutely call me. I've gotten calls at 6 a.m. on Sunday morning. I've gotten calls at 6 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, and they were true emergencies and things that I want to know about, right? So I never discourage a resident to call me. I just say, understand what's actually an emergency versus what can be handled the day after.
Yeah. And let me ask you a personal question. When you get that call at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning, that doesn't upset you at all?
It used to. I can be honest with you. It used to, like I'm sure it did with a lot of landlords, but over time, the resources that we've built and the people that we can call, and just with the knowledge that we've built with how many houses and properties we've touched,
Yeah.
I understand that there's always a solution there. So
Yeah.
when I call, it's, the first thing is, how can I put the resident at ease? How can I let them know that yes, something went wrong, but it's going to be fixed and we're working with you, right? So, let's get it out of panic mode if it doesn't have to be there. Then we dispatch who we need to, and we just continuously check in. In a case like that, Carl, communication is massive, because if you go dark on a resident, then that can be a big mood changer, right? They can feel like they're being ignored. They can be frustrated. When in reality, some things take time, but you just have to say that, right? You have to
Right.
communicate with them.
Yeah. And I think that's why people hire you, is because one, they either don't want to be bothered that Sunday morning, or two, they don't have the infrastructure or the wherewithal to do things as quick as you can, right? Like, that somebody calls and there's an issue with the refrigerator. Well, you can go right into the file, see what it was. Okay, the fridge is 15 years old. It's Maytag
Right.
model 1762. You're there, whereas a standard person is just like, I don't know. So who should I call? What should I call? And they jump on social media or something. And that's
Right.
that's why they pay you. They pay you for that ease of, one, I think they pay you to kind of handle all that so they can be hands off. And two, um, they pay you so they just can have that comfort level that it's being handled, right? Like, my property is in
Right.
good hands. I don't have to worry about it. My tenants are in good hands, and they're just, doing what they need to do, counting the money, figuring out if everything is good, and buying others and things like that. So, well, I want to thank you, Greg, for coming in. What's the best way for people to reach you, whether it's a real estate agent who wants to refer? First of all, are you okay with real estate agents referring you to their clients for somebody who's leaving or anything like that?
100%. So I do want to state that we don't do any transactional work ourselves. So we don't list properties, and we also don't sell properties. You can actually check my name out on the MLS. The business is pretty much zero, right?
Yeah,
So that should give you comfort that anyone you bring to us, we want to keep you on board for you for to work with them,
that's
right? We have no
important.
interest in that.
Yeah, that's really important, because
Absolutely.
there are a
We
lot of
want to,
property managers out there who are, competing brokers, competing sales agents,
right,
and you have to worry, like, okay, if I send them over there, and of course agents are very, possessive. I don't want to lose my
right.
client, so that's nice that you have that peace of mind when referring it to
Absolutely.
you. Yep. Okay, that's cool. And what is the best way to get a hold of you? Is it your website at unbundledpropertymanagement.com? Hold on, let me see what that is. I'll put the
Yep.
link in.
Unbundled. Oh, that's perfect. Yep, it's unbundledpm.com. You can go
Yeah.
on there. We have a submission form that you can fill out. It comes directly to our email. I get that in real time, so I respond quickly. We have social media, or you can call me. My number is 860-539-5667. A call or a text, and I promise I'll get back to you.
Yeah, and let me just say, from a personal perspective, we're working on a couple projects right now. You are super responsive, which I appreciate, because I'm coordinating with the owner of the leasing, and you check the place out, and update me and everything. It's been great. So I can certainly say, from a first person perspective, that Greg's the real deal. And so if you're looking for property management, he's definitely the person to call. So thanks, Greg. I appreciate you coming on and checking us out. And
Thank you, Carl. This has been great.